Hi, YouTube. I'm back. It's Renaissance Max, and my name's Maxine. Let's start this again. Hi, YouTube. I'm back with another video. This is Maxine of Renaissance Max, and if you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. I'm here with another video, and we're talking today about thrifting online. So, what do I have to say about it? Well, I do a lot of vintage thrifting online because we don't have any stores here. I'm in Toronto, Canada, and we have no more Goodwill. They packed up and left town last year. I think there is one store here. We have Value Village, which is not really my vibe. I'm usually, more often than not, looking for special vintage pieces that are going to zhuzh up my classic minimalist wardrobe. Generally, what I'm looking for when I'm thrifting is something that is vintage as opposed to, stuff that got dropped off from Shein or something, for instance. And something that's just special and is going to help elevate my wardrobe in some way, add that little extra oomph to make it special. And as I was saying, the thrifting in Toronto is... In my last video, I took you to my favorite spot. So it's not all dire, but for the most part, it's a lot of mostly consignment stores. There are a couple of stores that are just straight up thrift / vintage stores that will buy your items outright. There's a couple of high-end vintage places that are actually quite pricey. And of course, you have your Poshmarks and so on. We don't have here the real, all of the vintage stores that you have in the States, the Savers, the Labels, L Train in New York. There's a few of those, right? Or a couple anyway. So yeah, we have what we have. We have an area downtown, Kensington Market, where there are quite a few thrift stores and a new one, which I'm going to check out soon, and I will probably take y'all along with me and we can see what that's all about. But other than that, there's a lot of stores that vintage seems to mean t-shirts, old graphic tees. That's not really my idea of vintage. That's not the kind of stuff I'm looking for when I go vintage shopping. But I mean, for those who are looking for that, then that's great. We have lots of that. So, shopping online. I wanted to talk about this because it's something very near and dear to my heart. Because there are such slim pickings here, I do a lot of my shopping online, specifically eBay, because there is such a wealth of offerings on eBay. Everything you can possibly think of is on eBay. So that's easy choice, right? But it can be a bit of a challenge shopping, not just on eBay, on any site where you are shopping online, because you can't see it. You can't touch it. You don't know if it fits. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about in this video. I want to talk about just some specific tips that I think are really useful for buyers, but for sellers as well. Because I've had so many mishaps with shopping online. I have actually an entire rack, plus maybe downstairs in my basement, of mishaps. And not just because of, the fact that they don't fit or they didn't fit or whatever. I mean, sometimes it's just that they didn't look good. They didn't, I thought they looked good and I got them here and I tried them on and no, no, not working for me. And the other problem with online shopping, particularly being here, is that very often you cannot return it. Okay. Especially on eBay. A lot of sellers, well, I've noticed there are a lot now that do take returns. But when I first started shopping on eBay, and to this day, there are a lot of people that are like, no, you buy it, it's yours. We're not taking it back. It's too much hassle. And I get it because just the whole hassle of shipping and, having to figure out who pays return shipping, all of that stuff. It's too much. People want to just get rid of their stuff. And once you buy it, it's yours. And they always say, ask lots of questions. And let's get into that because some sellers don't provide nearly enough information. So this is a tip really for sellers and for buyers too. We need the measurements. We need the measurements and we need the color and we need the size. I can't tell you how many listings I've looked at where I had to actually go into the body of the description to figure out what size it was. I would love if every seller would just put that in the line with the title so that I know right away, okay, that's a size 10 shoe. That's not going to fit me. It doesn't make sense me clicking on that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, blah, 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 stiletto heel, Manolo Blahnik, la, 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 Python heel or whatever, size 9. Like, just put it in the title. Okay, so there's that. Then the other thing is people who don't provide enough pictures. One picture isn't going to sell the item. Even if someone knows exactly what they're looking for and they find it online, if you've only provided the one picture of, say, a bag and it's just the front of the bag, what is that telling me? I have no idea what the inside is like. And I'm very picky about my bags. They can't be stained. They can't be ripped or torn or, there is a certain amount of wear and tear, of course, that is acceptable because you're buying secondhand. And so, you have to be a little bit open-minded and flexible about that. But other than that, I'm not dealing with stains and stuff. No, 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 no. Don't want to do it. So I need a picture of the inside. And even though I am very diligent about, if I need more information, I will send a message and ask for the information. And I've got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, I'm not getting a response until I send yet another message saying, hey, I messaged you a few days ago. Don't know if you saw it. And then maybe I'll get a response. And I'm not really blaming the sellers. For someone who's got 1,000 listings on eBay, and who's trying to juggle all the things and get all the shippings out and do all that stuff. It can be a lot to try and keep up with, a bunch of people messaging you all the time. But again, if you're providing all of the information that is needed, then other than asking if you're, willing to make a deal or something, if you haven't put that in the description, then, you probably won't have to deal with so many questions from people. But I have had just some crazy, crazy interactions with sellers online. I once asked a guy, he had a listing. This was many, many years ago, I want to say 2014 or something like that. Was a vintage denim jumpsuit online on eBay that I was interested in. And it just said it was a medium. So it was vintage, it's a medium. I saw the pictures, it looked great. But saying that a vintage piece is a medium really does not give any information at all. What does that even mean? So I messaged the seller and I said, could you provide some measurements? Like, what is the length? What is the... This guy, I think it was a guy, wrote back to me and said, I'm not a tailor. How would I know all that? And I'm not joking. That is exactly what happened. And I was flabbergasted. You're not a tailor? Okay, but you are a seller on eBay and you want people to buy stuff. I don't want to say sight unseen, but you understand what I'm saying. You're not going to be able to see it in person. And yet your whole thing is, oh, it's a medium. And you know what? I've had that even recently as a couple of years ago on Poshmark. Someone was listing a coat. It's a men's coat. It was a great coat, a camel coat. Okay, let's not do the whole camel coat thing again, but I did find that great camel coat. Oh my God. Okay, we can talk about that again another time. Anyway, they had a camel coat, not my camel coat, a different camel coat before I found my camel coat. And it was a men's and it was listed as a small. So again, as I do, I messaged the seller and I said, hi, are you able to provide some measurements? Because men's small. Oh, and I think it might have even been, was it a Zara coat? So you know, Zara, the sizes are all over the globe. Okay. There is no way, unless it's something that you know specific and have seen in the store, that you're going to be able to get that right just by somebody saying it's a small, it's a medium, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, and particularly it's a man's too. So, you know, I have no idea what that's going to fit like. And this guy said, yeah, no, I have no way of doing that. But it fits like, you know, I tried it and it fits like a small, I tried it and it fits like a regular, kind of fits a little oversized. Okay, sir, I don't know you. Don't know you. But okay. So these are the kind of things that I had to deal with when trying to buy something online or just get some more information. So I really need sellers to step up in that regard, provide as many pictures as you possibly can, because remember that you're selling to someone who cannot see the product, okay, in person, can't feel it, can't touch it, and, you know, needs to know exactly what they're getting before they put out their hard earned money on something that they cannot return to you. So there's that. And then it's how things are measured as well, right? Uh, Marika, Brooklyn Betty, my buddy in my head. She did a video on this last week where she talked a little bit about how you measure for things. And that was great and very informative. And I just wanted to go a little bit more into detail about how you should be measuring. And not just vintage or thrifted items, but you know, anything that you're buying. It would be good to know these particular measurements so you can get an idea for exactly how it would look on you. So okay, let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to clip that there. Hopefully it stays on. Um, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, or give an example of how I believe things should be measured. Tape measure. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so this is a tape measure for anybody who's never seen one and thinks they need to be a tailor to have one. These are available, I think, even at the dollar store, and so necessary if you're going to be a seller. I have some listings up on Poshmark, and I have sold before, the odd thing, bags mainly, on eBay. And what I started doing, I've noticed a lot of sellers are doing this now, and I love this. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, all you sellers who are doing this. That people will take measurements with the tape measure on the item, right? So you know exactly, oh, okay, so this bag is 11 inches long, it's 8. So you know what I mean? So you have a clearer visual of what it is you're looking at or looking for. So I'm going to grab a blazer because this one in particular is a bit of a pet peeve with me. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to get my vintage Ralph Lauren denim blazer because it fits perfectly. Okay. What I noticed that a lot of sellers do, you hear me okay? What I noticed that a lot of sellers do is they will measure something like this, where they go from the shoulder, for instance, right? And then measure down the arm like that. Or they just sort of, I've seen it where it's just haphazardly crossways like this and measure down the arm. It would be so much more helpful if you actually isolated the shoulder. So from seam to seam at the shoulder, that measurement there is how I know for sure that a blazer or a jacket is going to fit me. This measurement here. So from seam to seam. Now I know it's difficult to do if you have a raglan sleeve, where it's like a drop shoulder type situation, but this is the most accurate in terms of most people. If you buy vintage, if you shop if you shop thrift, if you thrift, this is the most important measurement in terms of, is a jacket going to fit you? Because you don't want a shoulder seam that's here, right? For instance, like I know I can do a 16, 16 and a half, 17 is ideal. Okay. And then of course, if it's something oversized, like a coat that I'm going to want to put, layers under, then I would need at least an 18 or a 19. So from seam to seam is of utmost importance when you're measuring. And then the next one that's really important is from pit to pit. So this measurement here, basically under the arm, from here to here, okay? That's the next measurement that's really, really important. Just so you know, if it's something that, you need to know your own measurements, but measure something that fits perfectly in your wardrobe, and then you'll know when you're reading the description and they've got the measurements, then you'll be able to tell, oh, okay, that'll fit, might be a little big, whatever. A little big is good, small, not so good. Okay. And then the length, that's the other thing I find a lot of people get wrong is they either don't give you the length, first of all, which is a big no-no, or they measure from, I don't know, wherever. I've seen people just haphazardly throw a ruler on an item of clothing, and then I don't even know whether it's or where they're measuring it from. So most ideal is to measure from the back of the collar, actually where the collar starts, as opposed to the actual collar. The collar, you don't need that whole measurement because you basically know it's going to be sitting at your neck, right? But from the bottom of the collar to the end of the garment is the length. I'm very picky about this, particularly with blazers, and particularly because I like, and will wear men's blazers, but I can't wear ones that are too long because I'm very short, petite, short. And if it's too long, I'm just going to look like I'm being swallowed up by this garment, and I will look even shorter than I am. So the length is something that I'm very particular about. And I will contemplate, having it hemmed or taken up by an actual tailor or a really good alterationist. If I'm so inclined, if it's worth it, more and more, I am trying not to spend extra dollars fixing things other than putting in pockets. We know how important pockets are. So really, those are the three main important measurements when you're doing vintage. And of course, it would actually be very helpful to have the measurement of the sleeve, because everybody has different length arms, right? Some people have super long arms, some people have short arms. And the ideal measurement for that would be if you have a straight shoulder like this, like I said, and it's not like a raglan sleeve or a drop shoulder, to measure from this seam down the arm to the cuff to get the ideal length of the sleeve. So that would be the ideal way to measure that, as opposed to, from halfway across here, or a lot of people like to measure from the collar all the way down the arm. And then you've got to do some kind of mental math, basically, to figure out, oh, okay, well, what is the actual just length of the sleeve? So just some tips. Simple tips to make it easier for sellers and buyers. And yeah, if you can, as a seller, photograph the item with the measurements on it, as opposed to, having to write them down and then do it separately, whatever works for you. But this is so easy. You've got the pictures, you've got the measurements, and nobody has to ask you anything. They just can figure it all out for themselves and decide if they want to hit buy or make an offer. We love to make offers. So that's for the jackets. And I think same thing would work for a shirt. Okay. But yeah, that is the ideal way to measure. So shoulder seam to shoulder seam, which, I mean, they do it in men's tailoring. So why would we not do that for women as well? Pit to pit. Okay. So under the arms, and from the shoulder seam down to the cuff for the arms, and from the back of the collar down to the hem for the full length. Yeah. Okay. So that's that for blazers, tops, any kind of top, pants. That's another one that's hit and miss, to be honest, most of the time. And with pants, and this applies particularly to denim as well, because everybody likes their jeans to fit a certain particular way. And what I find a lot of people do, most people like to measure the inseam for the length, right? But if you measure, here's my thing about that, because I see it all the time. If you measure the inseam, but you don't also measure the rise, which is this area here, from the waistband to the crotch area, then I'm not really getting an accurate picture of how this is going to fit. Does that make sense? So what I like to do when I'm picturing something, I'm listing something, or a pair of pants, and I mean, people can always ask questions. Again, I do like to provide as many measurements as I possibly can, but I find if it's something where you're not going to also include the measurement for the rise, then at least just give the full length of the pant from the waistband all the way down to the hem along the front of the pant. At least that way I can go, oh, okay, so it's going to be this long. If you're giving me the inseam and I don't also have the rise, then that's not an accurate, unless you already know what your inseam is. And I don't even know how that works, to be honest. I would need to have both. But I do know that a lot of sellers are getting way more savvy about that. And particularly people who do, I guess, specialize in selling jeans, they do more often than not give the measurement for the rise, whether it's a low rise, high rise, whatever. And of course, obviously across the waist, right? Everybody needs that measurement for sure. But again, the rise is also a very important measurement, particularly now, because now everything is, well, not everything, but we're also back to sort of low rises coming back in style. Ew. Well, I know some people like it, But yeah, not so much for me. I like that extra support that's afforded by having something that comes all the way up here and sucks the belly in. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, yeah. So that the rise from the waist to the crotch. Then you can give the inseam. So then I have a perfect idea of how it'll fit all the way down, or just straight down the back to the hem from the waist. And then I know also what I'm looking at in terms of the length, right? And the waist. And some people go as far as to give the measurement across the thighs. I also like to measure across the hem so you know how wide it is, because that's a very important aspect of pants as well, right? So yeah, that's the whole thing with measuring. That's it. That's what I wanted to say, because I feel like a lot of people get it wrong or don't get it at all, that you need to provide these details, specific details for buyers. So, but I also want to say, you know, we need to not be total slaves to sizing. I know that there are people, and I think it's probably more women than men, who are like, oh, no, 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 I'm a size 6. I'm a size 6. Sizing is all over the place right now, all over the place. And like I mentioned before, if you shop at Zara, then you know that you will probably have stuff from Zara that ranges from an extra small all the way up to an extra large in your closet, because I don't know who does their sizing, but it is not consistent. You can't be a slave to a particular size. And sometimes things just look better in a different size. It might look better a size down than from what you normally take, or a couple sizes up. It just depends on how you really want that item to look. And that's another reason why shopping online is well, it can be hit and miss. A lot of times it can, but you know, having as much information as you possibly can, particularly with the measurements, really, really helps, right? And then, you know, you always have the option, if it's too big, to have it altered. Don't know what you can do with something that's too small. I've certainly made that mistake many, many times. If it's too big and, you know, you want to spend the extra money to alter it, then you can go ahead. So the one other complaint that I've had myself about shopping online is some people have just no idea what colors are. I'm going to show you a jacket. I bought this jacket many years ago. It is a vintage Ralph Lauren, sort of like, you know, one of those country jackets, walking in the countryside with my Cocker Spaniel or something. And I'm going to come up close so you can see that it is a brown check with, looks like purple in there, right? Some purple, a little bit. Let me get my glasses, because don't get me to lying about something that I'm trying to show you. But yeah, I don't know if you can see that. See that very subtle purple lining? And it is definitely brown. I hope you can see that. This was described to me as gray. Now, I'm perfectly happy with the color, but imagine my surprise when I opened the package and this was what I had, because I'm wearing a gray t-shirt. It's pale gray, light gray, whatever, heathered gray, but it's gray. This is not. So there's that. Just providing as much information as somebody could possibly ask for is just your best bet always. And for buyers, knowing your size and getting as much information as you possibly can is your best bet. That's it. That's all I wanted to say about, is it? It's pretty much, I think that's, let me check my notes, because I wrote some stuff down, as I do. Okay, so I talked about measuring the pants, measuring the jacket. Oh, I did want to say just a little bit about understanding vintage sizing compared to modern sizing. I don't know. Obviously, people were tinier back in the day, right? It's important to understand that the sizing is not the same, because I think a lot of people get confused with that. They think, oh, well, I'm a size 8. So if I order a vintage, something that's vintage, a size 8 should fit. And no, if you're a size 8, you probably need to get a size 10 or 12 in a vintage item. So, and then there's just the country difference too. British sizes, for instance, like in the UK and Australia, the sizing is completely different. A size 8 in the UK is like a size 4 here in North America. So, for instance, if I'm buying something that's in the UK, I need to buy, again, a size 14 UK. And that translates to, depending on the make, again, because they're all different, uh, like a US 10 or 12. So that's basically it. I just wanted to come on and talk about how to get the most accurate fit for your vintage items, by making sure that you ask for the right measurements and for sellers to provide the right measurements, so that people don't have to pepper you with a bunch of questions. So that's really it in terms of talking about thrifting right now. Yeah. So I hope that you were able to glean some, much needed or wanted information from that. And I'm going to be back next week with another vlog. And actually, what I would like to talk about next week is some of my most special and treasured vintage items. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. But yeah, in the meantime, in between time, I hope you like this video. If you stuck it out with me this long, then please, please, please give me a thumbs up, make a comment, let me know what you thought of the video. And yeah, we'll see each other again next week. I'll be back. If you come back, I'll come back. Okay. Have a great week, YouTube friends and family. And thanks for riding with me. Check me out on Instagram, Renaissance Max over there. And we'll see you again in another video. Okay. Take care. Have a great week. Bye.